One of the most impressive drivers of 2025 has been none other than Isack Hadjar. Out of the 5 rookies, he probably had the least amount of hype, up there with Jack Doohan. And there weren't many people that followed him through his junior career to see him get up to these heights in F1 and then expect him to perform the way he has. The French talent is now at Racing Bulls. I expect him to be in Red Bull in 2026, and I do believe he is the perfect fit next to Max Verstappen. He was the dark horse of 2025, not anymore. Now we have big expectations and he's been delivering upon them. But I want to talk about his career and his driving style, why it's the perfect fit next to Max, and why I believe his career will be very good. This is just a start. So if you're new here, we're on the road to 100K. Thank you all for voting as well on the poll. But go ahead and subscribe. It means the world to me and helps my channel out a lot, so thank you all for that. Let's get started with the video. Now, Isack himself grew up in France, Paris to be specific. At about 6 years old is when his career started in karting, and nowadays that doesn't even seem that young when you had Max in the car at like 3 or 4 and a couple of other drivers, but still very young. Most of us were happy playing with toy cars, but he was actually driving a proper kart going very fast. Even in his karting career, he was good. I wouldn't say he was a prodigy, but by 2019, going into French F4 is when his career really started to kick off. He was 14 at the time, and his debut season was quite the statement. He ended up winning at Spa, which has been quite the good track for him throughout his career, except for the one time he's been in an F1 car there. He ended up finishing 2nd place in F4, and that's when the Red Bull Junior team came knocking at his door. Then in 2022, he stepped up into F3 with Prema, where he ended up honing a lot of his formula skills, particularly in his driving style. And that came with a lot of podiums. He was very aggressive and was known to take a lot of aggressive lines in the wet and hold a lot of momentum in those high-speed corners. Then F2 came in 2023. This season was one to forget. It was his first in F2, and it had quite the learning curve. He was 14th overall, but 2024 was really a special season. He didn't win the F2 championship in this season, but the amount of wins he got, how hard he fought, and if he had a little bit more luck, he would have been on top and we would have been talking about him rather than Gabriel. He clinched victories in Australia, Imola, Silverstone, and Spa. And all these tracks provide incredibly different types of corner speeds. He did very good and dominated on all of them. In this meantime, we were seeing a very aggressive, agile, liked oversteer on his car, and quite the risky driver. He made a lot of deep dive overtakes and was very good in head-to-head racing. That was already a trait that we could see even in the early days of F4. But by 2025, he makes his debut with Racing Bulls and has one of the worst debut races to start in Melbourne, not even doing a lap, but everything else after that followed, it was meant to be. In China, we could already see that speed. Against Yuki, he was very quick and showed that his qualifying pace was right up there. Just in the race, he had to hone it a little bit. Then Liam Lawson came in at the 3rd race, and since then, it's been pretty much Hajar domination, getting up on the podium in Zandvoort, which was incredible. That was thanks to him qualifying very high, and then having a perfect race, controlling his tires, doing an amazing job, following his possibly future teammates. But what really sets him apart is his ability to control the car, very similar to that of Max. It's very similar to the way that Max takes slow speed corners. It's a particular style that he has honed perfectly. These short corners cut off time if you're able to control it. This is particular with oversteer, and there are very little drivers on the grid that can do it. Leclerc is one of them, Verstappen is the other, but they're very opposite in the way that they do it. Max is very smooth on the wheel. Charles, while he does have his smooth moments, likes to slide the rear a bit more, while Max keeps the car super controlled and there is very little sliding. And the reason why I compare both of these two is because Hajar is a bit in the middle while he's still really getting to grips with F1. This style will develop more and more, possibly more on the Max side, but either work with the Red Bull car that's a very front-oriented car. The rear sliding out is his comfort zone, does not like any understeer like drivers like Alonso and Carlos Sainz, who still do a very good job with it, but he uses controlled slides to rotate the car early and then blasting out of the corners with the maximum speed possible. This type of driving style is high risk, high reward. It's why we see so many teammates next to Max not able to achieve it, or they just crash, or they're very behind. Because a mistake could cost you the lap in qualifying, and in the race it can shred the tires very quickly. You have to be so precise and so perfect on your throttle modulation, the way you're going into the corner, hitting those braking zones at the optimal braking cues, and this really shines in low corner speeds. So like that outstanding Monaco performance he had, and if Singapore went a little bit more lucky, he probably would have been up there with Alonso. Had quite the fight with them, made him very angry, but I would rank him among the top 5 slow speed corner drivers on the grid right now, which is insane to think, even in a Racing Bulls car. I do think the Racing Bulls car does favor him a bit, especially because he is a rookie. He's driving a very well-balanced car. It's not the quickest, but it doesn't really have too many problems. There's been very little crashes, except for the ones in the rain. The Kimi one in Silverstone, that wasn't great, but he also couldn't see him. Then, of course, Australia. But other than that, he's done an outstanding job throughout the season. As I've stated, with him being the perfect fit, the Red Bull cars are made for drivers who can handle a very pointy, and I mean towards the max, think Everest peak pointy, but very powerful car on rotation, which is how Isack drives. It's the most similar out of anybody on the grid. I've used Nico Hülkenberg as a comparison as well, but that's just not realistic with him going to Red Bull, and it's been quite the downturn in the second half of the season. Isack is very realistic. It could happen, and I think it's the perfect fit. That short corner style is near perfect, and from what I've been hearing with the 2026 Red Bull, it should be a more balanced car. I am hearing that it's going to be a slower car as well. But the team is in desperate need of having a somewhat comparable teammate to Max. I don't think Isack is ever going to be as fast as Max Verstappen because this guy is a talent that we probably will not see for generations. But I am not going to count him out completely. There is a possibility of that happening. The Red Bull team does need double point scores much more often. While I do believe Yuki has a high ceiling, he's now been in that Red Bull since Japan. I don't believe it's the perfect match. Baku was good, but the Red Bull car was the fastest car there, so I do expect him to be up there. In Singapore, Max finished second. Yuki was nowhere to be found. And in Monza, it was the same case. When Max is winning, Yuki is typically sometimes even out of the points, or just barely getting them, like in Imola. Even Helmut Marko has gone on to say Isack has the same fire as Max, he's fearless. So personality-wise, I think he fits in with the Red Bull family, but driving style-wise, where it's most important, Hajar, he's a talent. And I think a very good one. If he can just hone this and get a little bit closer to that more smooth style that Max drives with, it'd be very impressive to see what he can chef up in the 2026 season. I've come to love Hajar, a driver that I had no expectation with in this season, has shown so much determination to really prove everybody wrong. Because that first race, he could have cracked under the pressure, and he did the complete opposite. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you guys agree with me saying that their driving styles are very similar? And what are your thoughts on Hajar? Please leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and peace.